Hey, U.S. History class. This is Coach Galt. This is going to be basically the last thing that we're going to do for the school year. I know this isn't how we all pictured it at the beginning of the year, but I will be posting this modern era quiz here in a few minutes. This will be Tuesday afternoon. It's only 10 questions. You're going to see it. It's just going to be like the other quiz. You can email me if you have any questions. I'm going to do a quick review, and it's basically going through everything that we've done so far. So this was from week 6 and week 5. This first part talking about Richard Nixon. It's going to talk about some of the things that he did in his presidency. One thing that's going to be on the quiz is this War Powers Act. So this War Powers Act was a law that required Congress's approval before the president could move troops. So we talked about before with the Vietnam War how the president at the time, kind of just Lyndon B. Johnson, he just kind of moved the troops there with that Gulf of Tonkin resolution. So this War Powers Act really limits the power of the president. And so it's now shared between the legislative and executive branch. There's not a question about the Watergate scandal on there. There is going to be a question about Gerald Ford. And so Gerald Ford is also a controversial figure because he becomes president after Nixon resigns. So you have the whole Watergate scandal, and we learned about that. We looked at the videos on that. And so Nixon's going to resign before he gets impeached. So he doesn't get impeached, he resigns. So he basically quits before he gets fired. So Gerald Ford becomes president, and he is seen as controversial because he is not going to hold Nixon accountable. He's not going to hold Nixon accountable. He also is going to pardon President Nixon. And so what a presidential pardon is, the governor has the power to pardon and the president has the power to pardon. And basically it means that you're forgiven of all your wrongdoing. Your slate is wiped clean. And so a lot of people thought that Nixon should have gone on trial for what he did. And so he just kind of pardoned Nixon and said, hey, you're good to go. You're clean. We're not going to think about it anymore. So he's seen as a controversial figure. Going on to this next one, moving on to Ronald Reagan. Reaganomics is going to be on the quiz. It's also known as supply side economics. And the main thing that it does, it calls for a tax cut for the wealthy. So that's definitely going to be on the quiz. It calls for a tax cut of the wealthy. And so basically the idea of this is that if the wealthy people have more money, they're the business owners. And so if the business owners have more money, they can invest it into their business and it will quote unquote trickle down to the working class or the middle class. Another part of Reagan that will be on here is the end of the Cold War. So we started the Cold War way before we got out of school, and now we're finally coming to an end. And two main things that show the end of the Cold War is the fall of the Berlin Wall in Germany. So we talked about how Berlin was divided and Germany was divided. So Germany's going to be reunited here in the 1980s, 1990s. And then the second thing is the collapse of the Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union is going to fall apart. So all these little countries, you can see this map right here, all these little countries now become independent. Technology and the use of personal computers are going to be on there. The question's worded like, what are 3 things that technology in the late 1900s brought to us? One of them is the personal computer. One of them is the internet. And then we begin seeing email also. So those 3 things are going to be on the quiz as well. The last part of the quiz, it's going to be over this last PowerPoint. You have President Clinton. I can't remember the question. I don't think there's a question specifically about his impeachment. One of the good things that President Clinton does is NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. President Nixon, I remember the question now. President Clinton is going to be impeached for perjury. And so some of you know he was accused of having improper sexual relations with one of his White House staff members, one of his interns. And so there's going to be a court case about this. And so he is going to lie under oath. And so that's called perjury. So when you get up on the stand and you say, I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God, you're taking that oath. And so if you lie under oath, that's called perjury. So Clinton was impeached of perjury. He's the second president ever to be impeached. Now Donald Trump is the third president to be impeached. There is going to be a question about 9/11. The question is about what the targets were. There were 4 airplanes. 2 of them hit at the World Trade Center, New York. One of them hit the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and the other one crashed in Pennsylvania. And we don't know the actual goal of what that plane was, but the flight members were able to hijack it back and crash it into a field in Pennsylvania. I do not have any questions about Iraq and Afghanistan. There is a pretty easy question about Barack Obama, as if you can know, and you should because it happened in your lifetime, that Obama was the first person of color to be elected president. You should be fine on that question. And then there's another, lastly, there's a question about social media. And this is an open response question. All of you have social media. You've grown up in this age of social media. So I don't think you should have a problem answering that. Again, you guys do have these notes. So just make sure that you're using your notes wisely. And then email me if you have any questions. So hope you all have a good year. Again, email me if you have any questions. See you later.